Thomas Partey is a player many of us assumed would be leaving Arsenal this summer at the end of his contract. Throughout the season, it's been reported that there would be no new offer on the table, much like with Jorginho, and that they'd both be leaving and that we'd be replacing them in the summer. And that was until last night when David Ornstein suggested otherwise. Now, look, this is a divisive topic. It is. If you were on social media last night, you'd have seen that division. All I ask is that you're respectful in the comments. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. However strongly you disagree with that opinion, please just keep it respectful. And for most of the video, we're going to focus on the football side. But look, before we get into it, if I could just ask you to subscribe if you're not subscribed already. We're now over halfway to 16,000 subscribers, which is insane. And if you could click that thumbs up button, the like button, helps the video get to more people, continues the channel growth. I would be massively grateful. But to get into last night's news, this dropped before kickoff against Crystal Palace. Arsenal want Thomas Partey to stay. This is coming from David Ornstein, so of course it is legitimate, and are in talks over a new contract. The 31-year-old midfielder is happy at Arsenal, and his family are enjoying London life. The Ghana international is open to an improved 2-year deal, or 1 + 1 year, and will consider alternative options if an agreement cannot be struck. Now, that word improved is kind of the word I think that jumps out at me from that post, and is the word that we're going to be focusing on most in this video. But before we get into the football side, it's difficult to know what to do, to be honest. But we're gonna approach the elephant in the room. Lots of opinions flying around, of course, last night. To be honest, this was the opinion that resonated most with me. From the Magic Hat. If you don't follow him on X, great account, focuses on a lot of legal stuff within football, the 115. But this is what he said. And like I said, it resonated. I can understand Arsenal's stance on Partey until now. They have legal responsibilities and must respect the law, including employee rights. Partey has never been charged by the Crown Prosecution Service, nor failed a safeguarding investigation. He's not even been named, other than on social media. There's nothing they could do differently without seriously breaching his legal rights. But this will change if they choose to extend his contract. That's making a choice to continue a relationship with an individual where there is anecdotal evidence of SA sufficient such that anyone connected with the club should want him gone. That's what resonates with me most. I'm not going to massively elaborate. I appreciate that people have different opinions on this, either side of it, but that's where I'm at. Now I want to focus on the football side, so that's what we're going to do. And for me, this is the biggest thing. Salary. He wants an improved salary. Now, he is currently the 5th highest paid player at the club on £200,000 a week. Now, you could argue that this season, he has been within the 5 most influential and important Arsenal players. He's been fit throughout the vast majority. I think he's only missed 1 game through injury. And he's been very important for us. And on that basis, you could argue, yeah, he deserves to be on 200 grand a week. Certainly compared to a Gabriel Jesus, for example, on 265 grand a week. But that kind of ties in to where I'm a little bit worried. If you're talking about giving Thomas Partey an improved salary above £200,000 a week, when you consider he turns 32 in June, so he will be 32 going into next season, I worry that you've got him on over 200 grand a week. You've got Gabriel Jesus on 265 grand a week. Gabriel Jesus, we will not be able to shift this summer because of his ACL injury. You're looking at nearly £500,000 a week on players that may not feature much next season. And you say based on current form, Thomas Partey will feature lots next season. But within the same interview, actually, that David Ornstein did last night where he was talking about Thomas Partey's potential new contract, he said Arsenal are still moving as if Martin Zubimendi is an Arsenal player next season. To all intents and purposes, Zubimendi is done. Well, Zubimendi is a 6. We're going to be spending 50 to 60 million pounds on him. He is entering his prime age. Are we really bringing him in to sit behind Thomas Partey in the pecking order? I would assume not. And if you've just given Thomas Partey a new deal on what, like 220? Well, then Zubimendi's going to be coming in saying, well, hang on, you're bringing me in to replace Thomas Partey, and you've just given him 220 grand a week. Well, I want at least 220 grand a week. And this is where it starts to become problematic. And you might say to me, and it would be fair to do so, you might say, it's not your money. Not your money. Why do you care about how much they're earning? And the reason is we still have a limited budget. We are still limited to how much we can spend on players and on salaries. And when we're negotiating new deals, as we are at the moment for Nwaneri, Miles Lewis-Skelly, and then the big ones of Bukayo Saka, William Saliba, Gabriel, If you throw 220 grand a week at Thomas Partey, that's 220 grand a week that could go elsewhere. That's 5 players that you could be offering an extra 40 grand a week to that's going to Thomas Partey. Now, you need squad depth, right? And if we lose Jorginho and Thomas Partey this summer, then you could argue 2 players that you need to replace. But an improved contract, I just find crazy. I was assuming if we were going to give him a new deal, that the new deal would be on less than he's currently on, not more than he's currently on, given that he was struggling to find other teams or other clubs that wanted to buy him, partly because of what's hanging over him. But look, the other issue I have is this. It's the injury history. And again, you may turn around and say, look at this season. He's missed 6 days with 1 muscle injury this season. Problem solved. My argument would be, was this season the outlier? Was this season the anomaly? Because what we'd seen from him prior to that was a consistent pattern of injuries. And the one real issue I have is that if he's becoming a squad player, and he would be becoming a very expensive squad player if he's on over 200 grand a week, but if he's becoming a squad player, he has to be fit and available at all times, much like Tomiyasu. In the same way I have an issue with Tomiyasu. If you're going to be the backup to Zubimendi, you are useless if you're not fit. Because that means as soon as Zubimendi gets injured, you haven't got Zubimendi, you haven't got the backup. That's the issue we've had with Tomiyasu. And so I look at it and I go, have we learned, for example, from Calafiori? Calafiori, last season, was relatively injury-free. Before that, he'd had quite a few injuries, obviously, following on from that major knee injury. And I looked at it and I feel like I made a bit of an error there where I said, well, look, last season, looks like he got over those injuries. And then we've seen him this season. That's my worry with Thomas Partey. And again, when you add all of these things together, it's like, is it worth the gamble? Is it worth the gamble? And that's the thing that I kind of keep coming back to. And I'm not sure that the answer is yes. Now, look, if we look at him as a player, and I'll bring this up, if we go and look at him as a player, based on this season, I completely get giving him a new deal. I completely get not looking to try and replace both him and Jorginho in the same window, which is difficult. I think he's had a fantastic season. Like I said, he is 32 in the summer, which is a bit of a concern, but he's played more minutes for Arsenal this season than any previously. Actually, his output with 4 goals and 2 assists is more than ever previously. He's stepped up in big games. Okay, he frustrated the life out of me getting that booking against Real Madrid, but he has stepped up in big games. And so I get it. If you put everything else aside, if you put the injury history aside, and you put the off-field stuff aside, I get giving him a new contract. I'm just not sure that when you include that stuff, it is worth it. And I look at it, I say, what's the plan? What's the plan? If you're bringing in Zubimendi, you've then got Zubimendi who's a 6, Partey who's a 6. Okay, Declan Rice must be seen as the 8 next season. Then you've also got Mikel Merino. You got Max Dalman coming through, who's a midfielder. We were interested in Sverre Nipan, although it sounds like he might be going to Aston Villa now. But I'm not entirely sure what the plan is. And I would be looking at it going, we'll give you less money than you're currently on. If you are intent on keeping him, we'll give you less money than you're currently on. Because you're not going to get that anywhere else anyway. But apparently that's not the case. Now, the only other kind of logical explanation that I can see is we sign him to a new deal and then we sell him. We get him to sign a new contract. Maybe we give him a 2-year deal. We keep him for 1 more season and then we sell him at the age of 33 to Saudi and we get something rather than losing him on a free. That is the only part of it that I can make some sort of logical sense of. But ultimately, I just wouldn't be giving him an improved contract. It's as simple as that. I wouldn't. You bring in Zubimendi, you bring in another midfielder, and you're set. And I think there are young, I think you can look out there, and I'm going to make a video on some of the alternatives, but you look out there are younger alternatives to Thomas Partey that you can bring in relatively cheaply, that you'd be paying far less than half of what you'd be paying Thomas Partey. And I just feel like that would be a better solution, to be quite honest with you. But look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm wrong. Let me know your opinion. As I said, please do be respectful with it. If you could like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. We'll be back tomorrow with another video because we do now have daily uploads on this channel. And other than that, it's a Thursday. So it's basically a Friday, which basically means it's the weekend. So have a great evening. Have a great weekend. And I will catch you on the next one. Till then, goodbye.